let's talk about rating updates. For those of you that don't know, Rating Update is, or well, I guess was, a website that tracked your theoretical MMR in Guilty Gear Strive. It did this by tracking every match that you played in the tower and giving you a certain amount of points depending on how likely you were to beat the opponent. The less likely you were to beat them, the more points you would gain by winning a match. And the less likely you were to lose against them, the more you would lose if you actually lost against them. The website was made by Felix Windstrom, also known as Sovgot Games on Twitter. They did an amazing job with the systems on the website, and the UI design is clean. I've never actually run into any problems using this website, and I've even mentioned it in several videos and used some of the features available to make videos on my own channel. Rating Update is a great tool, and Felix should be praised for the work that they did. However, as much as I like Rating Update and the funny number that goes up, I have to ask, was it good for us? Listen, I don't want this to be a place for people to talk shit on Rating Update. This wasn't something that needed to be created. Felix obviously doesn't make that much money from the website, and the incentive to keep it up is purely because it is a good tool that benefits the community. But the community seems to have taken this tool and used it in a different way. Now, let's be honest with ourselves. Humans are pretty simple creatures. Me have bigger stick means me better than you. Big number equal big good. Me do funny thing. You nitpick and bias. I win. Bye-bye. But there is one thing that humans like doing more than literally everything else in the world, and that is gloating at other people and making themselves feel better. Originally, when Guilty Gear Strive came out, the only way for people to boast was their placement in the tower. The higher the floor was, the better your placement was considered. However, pretty quickly on, there was found to be a problem with the system for people who reached the top. Celestial at the start of the game felt like a massive achievement, something that you should be proud of. And for a lot of people, it still is. The challenge is brutal and not something that everyone can do consistently. So if you're shooting for it and you get it, good job, dude, let's fucking go. However, once you're in Celestial, you'll probably notice that there's a massive skill gap between the players of the game. There are some people in Celestial that feel like they're just a little bit better than players in Floor 10, and they are literally playing against the best players in the world, and you have everyone in between. And when you decide to play in Celestial, you either have to handpick every match that you go for, or let the game decide your fate and roll the dice on your next opponent with auto queue. Now, I have criticized this aspect of Celestial in the past in a now somewhat infamous video, but not long after that video came out, I was made aware of a Rating Update, and my views on Celestial started to shift, and so did the community's. Now, instead of having no way of knowing how good somebody is outside of tournament results and the simple fact that they made it into Celestial, we had a perfect numerical value that shows us, compared to everyone else in the entire game, exactly how good you were. And to say that people started taking this somewhat seriously would be an understatement. For some people in the community, this number meant everything to them. It was a sign of exactly how good they were. If the number was big and was going up, you're on top of the fucking world. You're one of the best. But if it was low and it was going down, then I'm sorry, but that isn't looking good for you, dude. Let's ignore the fact that you're getting your ass kicked and learning is part of the process. If your number went down over the course of your play session, you got worse. For a lot of intermediate and even higher level players, this was the thought process that went through their heads while playing in Celestial, and it can be extremely damaging not only to the way that you play the game, but also their motivation and even their mental health, because it's always an ever-present thought in the back of your mind. The idea that even losing once to this person could force you to lose a bunch of fictional numbers that you worked for so long makes the session more stressful for some people, and they just can't mentally take it. Now, don't get me wrong, this didn't affect everyone at the higher levels of Strive. There were several competitors that realized that after a certain point, the number didn't matter that much, and you just shouldn't worry about it. These players sometimes express this idea in different ways, with some of them simply using their platform to promote this ideology, and reassure players that focusing on improving was the best way to enjoy these games, and other players had more nefarious methods, like, I don't know, using an exploit in the MMR system to force themselves to the top of the leaderboards and declare themselves the king of Strive, as well as making pipe bombs whose elo was so low that losing them forced you to lose your elo dramatically and forced you to plummet down the leaderboard. As you can see, this caused somewhat of a ruckus in the Strive community, especially with those that cared about rating update, but it was pretty funny. However, there was always something about rating update itself that irked me, and I never really saw other people bring it up or talk about it. And now that the new patch has broken the site, I feel like I should probably say something. The idea of rating update doesn't map with how Celestial is made. Let me explain this point. Rating update is designed off of an MMR or ELO system. Most games with a ranked system use this method in some way. However, the actual number is generally hidden behind some badges and stuff so that you don't see how the system itself works. However, most games with a ranked system use a method known as skill-based matchmaking. Skill-based matchmaking attempts to have you fight people of similar skill by taking your ELO and matching you with someone of similar ELO. If you're performing well, you'll fight higher ELO players, and if you're not doing so well, you'll fight against lower ELO players. Now, this is the optimal way to design any competitive game in my opinion, as playing against players of similar skill level as you is the most enjoyable experience in competitive gaming. However, fighting games historically messed this up, with most of them having either decent but flawed skill-based matchmaking, or just no skill-based matchmaking at all. Now, granted, for a lot of older fighting games, the rank systems in these games are dead content, and the players need to use other systems like the lobby functions or external programs in order to get matches with people of similar skill, or if your game is really old or niche, sometimes at all. This is why the tower in Strive was created. Because their game's rank systems normally die out in a couple of months, Arxis decided to take the most popular way to play their fighting games, the lobby system, and turn it into a system in which there are skill divisions, but you can play anyone else in that division. If you are on a floor in the tower in Guilty Gear Strive, you can go to any floor above yours, but no floor below yours. This ensures that players who want to fight people of equal skill are able to, without fear of facing higher level players. However, if you do want that challenge, then you can self-select and go to the higher floors and fight stronger opponents. This system for new and intermediate players at the start of the game was very good and allowed for several evenly skilled matches. However, once you get into Celestial, the tower changes from something that you can play to get evenly skilled matches to a training ground where you can fight the strongest opponents in the game if they're online. Celestial works more like how something like an actual arcade would. Instead of being able to get a system that selects opponents specifically to play against each other, you have to fight whoever is or isn't in the area at the time. Some days you'll have people that you're able to beat pretty easily without much trouble, and other times the best players in the region are hanging out and it's your time to get your ass kicked. You won't know who you're going to fight before you go into Celestial, and this is good. If your main goal is improving, you want to be able to fight a bunch of different people at different skill levels. Players that are better than you will show you what you need to do to improve by exploiting your weaknesses, and players that you're better than will be good practice for techniques and refining your execution and game plan. By removing skill from the equation of the matchmaking, you're able to focus more on improving and getting better, and the outcome of the match means nothing. Unless you're grinding for auras, but auras are bullshit anyway, trust me. Now what happens when we add a system that tracks every match that you plays and gives you an ELO rating depending on how many people you've beaten and lost to, and you may begin to see the problem. The ELO is less valuable as you're not constantly fighting people of your exact skill. Now, I'm sure some people will make the argument that the system still works, as everyone who is in Celestial earned their place there, and this should be better than at least someone else in Celestial. If we ignore the fact that it's very easy to cheese and collude your way into a permanent monthly Celestial spot, there is a good chance that you could have just fought people who were at the lower end of Celestial or using secondary or even third characters in order to get in. Just looking at the ELO rating on Rating Update, your ELO in Celestial can be anywhere from 1,600 to 2,500. That's nearly a 1,000 difference in rating, which in any other game would have several divisions between them. So all of these matches are changing your ELO despite not being evenly skilled matches. And let's be honest, there's a good chance that sometimes someone just gets the better of you despite being at a lower ELO than you. If this was just Celestial, that doesn't matter, because there's a next match, but in Rating Update, it matters a lot, because you losing to somebody who's a lot lower in ELO than you, that is a bunch of points that you're going to lose. Because of the way that the two systems are designed, and because of interactions like that one that I just mentioned, I think that Rating Update was unfortunately flawed from the outset. The ELO, technically, doesn't mean anything. But what's the point of criticizing something if not to give some sort of answer as to what I think should be improved in how the system could be fixed. The way that I see it, Rating Update is still a very good tool that you can use to track your progress, and I've heard it can actually be a pretty accurate prediction of a player's skill if they play entirely legit. But for it to truly flourish, it should be set up in an environment where players are actually matched against other players based off of the elo that they are given. Of course, this means I'm talking about adding a skill-based matchmaking area. Now, this obviously won't be implemented in Strive, as Rating Update is an external feature, so it itself would need to be an external feature. But I think this would give Rating Update meaning, and a great new way for players to find matches with players of the same skill level. It would be a lot of work, and I don't expect anyone to go with this crazy idea, especially because Rating Update has been down for a month, but I think that having matches in Celestial slightly affect your MMR, and then this new skill-based matchmaking system fully affecting your MMR like it normally would, could have players find these funny numbers work as intended while still being able to get evenly skilled matches. Celestial also keeps its place as an open space where you can go and practice and learn against the best players in the world. But still, Rating Update is a great tool that you can use. But don't let yourself get obsessed with it. Since the game doesn't match you with evenly skilled players, the fluctuation in your elo shouldn't be taken too seriously. Just play the game and have a good time. Since it went down, I've been enjoying Celestial way more, knowing that I don't have to check my elo after every game, wondering if my number is gone. I don't think that it doesn't have a place in Strive. I do really like it, and it is really well made. However, because the systems just clash so much, it just doesn't work. You could play for an hour and your elo could stay about the same or go down because you lost a match against someone who's way lower elo than you. Not a set, a match. And that just kind of feels like crap. Thank you for making Rating Update. But without skill-based matchmaking and the community obsessing over the numbers, maybe we were better without it.
Once again, a very special thank you to 64 MHz, Brudikai, Daniel Wiederich, Games.png, Lady Dantalon, Melodically Me, Monact, Enhauer, Proxicon, Smeech, Super Straw Fox, Tom Tanks, and Zandatsu for being Tier 2 patron supporters.